Welcome to a very special episode of From the Horsebox this month, when we learn about one of the best hunters in the world, the golden eagle. Every form of hunting evolves according to its natural surroundings, and flying the eagle from horseback has always been the most effective way to catch food and clothing in Bayan-Olgii, the westernmost province in Mongolia, where golden eagles thrive in the wild. We bring you first-hand stories from the eagle huntsman by chatting to Mary Williams from Arizona, who has been many times. Hi, Mary. How lovely to see you, and wonderful.
Hello, Claire.
You'll be able to connect with a real live American on such a day.
Oh, yes.
Welcome. And would you please like to introduce yourself, and where you're from, and what you do with the eagles and the hunting in Mongolia?
Well, I'm Mary Williams. I live in northern Arizona, Flagstaff, and I work part-time for an NGO that does hepatitis projects work in Mongolia. And mainly I lead fox hunting trips that are a partial fundraiser for the work that this organization does in Mongolia.
So you've just got back from the latest trip. So how are you feeling after that hugely demanding holiday physically?
Yeah, great. And actually, it's not incredibly demanding. I mean, it is in the sense that we're riding every day for probably 5 hours, but at the same time, we have a sit-down hour-long lunch in the middle of the day. The horses are fabulous, and we're, mostly walking, some trotting, climbing up and down big rocky peaks in the most amazing landscape you can imagine. So we're definitely out all day, but if this trip appeals to people, it's people that want more of an adventure and something that's real. So nobody's had a problem.
Is it different every time you go? I mean, you've been several times now.
Yeah, there's always different things. We've caught different amounts of foxes and other creatures, honestly. We've been to a couple different festivals, large one, small one. We visit different families along the way. So it's always just a little bit different.
So would it be possible to give us an insight into their culture of the hunting with eagles and what it means to people there in Western Mongolia?
Well, the eagle hunting is just practiced by the Kazakh people, which is an ethnic group within Mongolia. They speak Kazakh, and they're very related to other Kazakhs in Kazakhstan and northwestern China, that whole region. So eagle hunting has been passed down through generations and generations. And that's how people become eagle hunters there. Our hunter Showman, we have a few different hunters, but Showman's great grandfather was quite a famous eagle hunter out in Bayan-Olgii, and his grandfather and his father, who we also hunt with. And it's like if you're from an eagle hunting family, you just grow up with eagles in the house. It's like you grow up with a lot of livestock too, and herding and all that. So it's a very cultural identity, really, at this point. And I think people that are still doing it, and young people there that are still doing it, they're doing it for those reasons, really, to sort of honor the tradition and keep the tradition alive, because there are a lot of, modern society, it's not, things change, and it's no different there. Everybody's got a smartphone and, calling and messaging, and, I've all kinds of friends in Mongolia that I hear from all the time. And at the same time, I guess in some ways it's like hunting here. I mean, it's more of a traditional thing, and it's a activity, and it's something that people enjoy doing, going out and hunting with
Yeah.
eagles.
I mean, the ancient connections with the sport were recognised by UNESCO. In the intangible cultural heritage is clear to be seen on your pictures and videos. So, is it vital for them economically, putting food on the table and making, warm clothing? Is that still?
Yeah, in this day and age, it's not like vital for food and clothing necessarily. Although, when the eagle does catch foxes, they get skinned. The meat is actually fed to the eagle.
Mm.
So that's where the meat goes. The furs go to different things. They could use them to make some clothing. They might sell them to other people who are making handicrafts, and then they in turn sell them. Um, in this day and age out there, I mean, everybody's in North Face gear, or it's not like everybody's walking around in furs anymore. But in the middle of the winter, probably it gets pretty cold there, and there's nothing warmer than that.
The eagles are part of their families, are they? Are they very close to these magnificent golden eagles?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You'll often see the eagle, perched on a stand inside the gare,
Yes.
um, or they have little eagle houses, kind of like large dog houses where they live. Certainly in the winter, you'll see them parked on the motorcycle, or it's they're just there, you
Mm.
know. And they definitely, the bond that the hunters have with their eagle is quite remarkable.
I've talked to falconers who say, you can't be affectionate. They don't love you like a dog. And yet I see on one of your videos that he was riding along on his Mongolian horse, literally hugging this eagle. There was so much love and pride given to
Yes.
the eagle.
Yeah.
There is a huge bond from the human's point of view there. I don't know. What about the eagles? Are they? Uh,
I think so. And again, it probably can vary, from eagle to eagle. But Bote, our one of our hunters, he told a story on this last trip where he had an eagle that he hunted for a number of years and then released it. They typically release them when they're about, they usually maybe hunt them about 8 years, and then they release them into the wild to live and reproduce. So he had an eagle. He had released it after a number of years, and then I'm not sure the time frame, but at some point he went to visit a friend of his who was also an eagle hunter who had this eagle. And when he walked in and started talking, this eagle just started making all this noise. And he realized that it was his eagle that he had released. And his friend had unknowingly caught Bote's eagle and was hunting it. And he said it really kind of broke his heart, because that eagle had hunted with him for a number of years, and now it wasn't in the wild, anymore. And it was obviously there was a bond there. I mean, that eagle recognized his voice immediately. So at some point, that eagle did go back to the wild, but
Yes, I did see another video, the eagle Uber. Would you like to tell us about the eagle Uber?
oh, that was on this trip. We finished the trip after about 7 days of hunting, and then we go to the Eagle Festival for 2 days. And this was an Eagle Festival that was a few kilometers from where Showman and Bote live, in that village. And Bote was competing, and he rode his horse out there. And so you can ride faster when you're not carrying an eagle. So Showman brought the eagle out on his motorcycle, but he also brought his eagle. He wasn't competing, but just to give it more exposure. And then also brought an eagle that Botay's eagle had just caught the day before, which was really a once in a lifetime crazy event. So when he was leaving, he had them all, they bundle them up like a burrito, like in fabric, and tie him onto the motorcycle, and off he went with 3 giant wrapped up burritos with eagle heads sticking out the top, and took them all home at the end of the day. And it was, that stuff just happens. I mean, it doesn't faze anyone really.
They all travelled absolutely safely without.
Yeah, yeah. And that is actually how they get around, because on our second trip in 2022, that was a funny story. Showman's eagle, the end of day 2, he had a young eagle that he was hunting, and she was pretty vocal and just making noise all the time. Well, on the morning of day 3, we wake up and we're sitting in the dining gear, and everybody realizes this, we're not hearing any noise from this eagle. We're like, wow, that eagle's quiet this morning. And sheepishly, we learned that the eagle had gotten into all the meat that night and had eaten it all and was so full. So we went out hunting that day, and we saw 4 foxes. That eagle flew about 50 yards, hopped back up along the ridge. It was just, I mean, it was comical. So that night we hear a motorcycle, and here comes Botay with his eagle and a friend of his who was holding the eagle, and they showed up that evening, and they, it was probably 40-kilometer motorcycle ride at night over all kinds of terrain, and delivered his eagle. So we had a new eagle. So they just travel around in these little motorcycles.
So the eagle who was too content and full to fly, how did they get that eagle back? I thought they were controlled to come back through food.
There's just a bond there that the eagle.
So there must be some sort of training that goes on when they.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And actually this year we had 2 eagle hunters. We had Showman and his eagle, and a friend of his, Bauka, who had a new eagle to him. And Bauka had only had his eagle for 4 months, I think. And so he was still training that eagle. So he mostly was, we called this position the whipper in. He would, as we were going up the ridges and up to the high points, Bauka would be with his eagle and horse and ride kind of midline around the peaks, just to try to scare up foxes or whatever. And so his eagle mostly was there for training. But they said it takes, and then he competed in the Eagle Festival with that eagle. And he also, during our trip, Showman would take Bauka's eagle up high, and then Bauka would be down below calling it, and they'd practice the calling. And the eagle came to him, and he'd only had it for 4 months. So they said it takes anywhere from a month and a half to 3 months, and then they can have that relationship with that eagle to take it out and fly.
Yeah. Once the eagle hunter sees the prey and decides to fly the eagle, how exciting is that? I mean, what is it like?
It's incredibly exciting. It's incredible, because sometimes you're in a position where you can, it's like following the hounds, and you're right behind the eagle hunter. Usually you're up on a peak, you're looking around, and then somebody sees it, or the huntsman usually sees it, and the eagle takes off, and then it's kind of a race down to get there. And it's very exciting. It's pretty amazing. And we had a couple times this time where, we saw the fox. It was not that far away, and the eagle went down and just missed it. And the fox rolled and took off, twice. So it's not like they catch them every single time. And the foxes They have a lot of places to hide. They have places to go. But the eagles are pretty proficient hunters.
Are the foxes a pest to these herders with their animals?
I can't really speak to that. I don't know. Most of the first several days we were hunting was in an area where it was the summer place for most of the nomadic families, and they had moved out of there to their fall, autumn places. So there were only a couple herds and people left around. So these were clearly just foxes that just live out and hunt rodents.
Are there a big fox population there? Are there plenty of foxes?
Well, we caught and saw quite a number. And, this is just us, our small group traveling. The landscape is just so enormous there. And there's plenty of wild eagles flying around who are hunting all day as well.
So everything exists in quite a natural balance. There's not anybody with this is natural hunting. There's not anyone interfering with the numbers of each animal.
Right. Because, people aren't out hunting with their eagles every day.
No, sustainable.
We're hunting this in the fall isn't typically when they're hunting. Usually they hunt in the winter when the foxes' coats are the fullest, and it's easier to see tracks, so it might be a little bit easier. So winter is typically, culturally when they would hunt. And, they might go out 10 times a winter, 8 times, 12 times. It's not like
constantly
hunting every day, because it's just something that they enjoy doing.
I was also going to ask you about the climate. It always looks bright and sunny on your videos. Is it warm, cold? You mentioned the wind.
Oh yeah, it can be windy. I would say it's kind of high desert a little bit. Olgii is 1,700 meters, so it's just over 5,000 feet for us. So it can be very cold, but not a ton of snow, probably because of the wind in the winter. Other parts, further north in the Altai Mountains can have feet and feet and feet of snow. And it's fairly dry, so it's clear and sunny a lot. It's a lot like our climate here.
You don't have to wear the lovely furs and the cashmere then. What do you wear?
But we have a van that follows along that has our lunch and has the table and chairs, and they're just down in the valley, but you can put extra clothes in there, or if it's too warm, you can leave stuff there. So it's pretty easy or tie things onto your saddle.
So the horses, do they have a huge stamina?
Oh my gosh.
Do they?
The horses are incredible.
And
they are incredible.
Are they comfortable?
They're not tall. Like, do not call them ponies, but they are, 13.2 to maybe 15 hands, the biggest. But they are tough. They are the most sure-footed equines on the planet. They, when it's time to race, they can go. Racing is a big thing in Mongolia. And Bote has 3 stallions and probably 60 mares. And he breeds horses, sells horses, has race horses. And he has very good horses. So the horses we ride they've all been fantastic. They are so sure-footed. You can't even believe it.
Are they comfortable to ride?
Well, because they're short, if you're used to riding a 16 plus hand horse, it feels a little bit different.
Are they short striding or long striding?
They're shorter striding because they're small and they have short necks. So you can't really get up in the saddle too much because there's really not much in front of you, you know. I mean, it's kind of like, but they're really fun to ride. They're really fun to ride. And if you have a fast one, they're really fun to race. So, and we have a few opportunities to whoever wants to just let them rip, to have a race. And oh my gosh, it is so fun.
Have you ever flown an eagle?
No.
They strictly the eagle hunter themselves, are they?
Yeah. I mean, you know, everybody gets a chance to hold the eagle and you realize how heavy they are. They're really huge. I sort of look at it like if I'm going out with a huntsman and his hounds or her hounds, I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, but you always get the opportunity to take the picture for the Christmas card, you know, and all dressed up in the wool coat and the hat and the eagle and all that. And that's really fun. But I appreciate it as watching the huntsman work and the eagle work and riding along.
It looks absolutely stunning. How do you communicate with your huntsmen? Do they, can you speak any of their,
no.
What is their language called?
Kazakh.
Kazakh.
Yeah. And in that region, people typically speak Kazakh, Mongolian, and Russian, and then English. Those are, you know, and some people speak all four. But we have a guide with us who speaks English, Russian, and Mongolian, Kazakh. And, you know, she knows all the hunters, is from Olgii, guides all kinds of other trips as well for the outfitter that we use and work with there. So it really makes it easy. It would be tough to not have a translator.
So in Arizona, you are a hunting lady. You've hunted with foxhounds in Arizona, the Grand Canyon foxhounds. Do they show any interest in asking you about your style of hunting in America?
Not so much, but you know, we share pictures, and they're always interested in the horses because they're so different. And you know, the comment is that they are so big. And so yeah, so they're, you know, we showed a bunch of pictures around. We had this year people from hunts in Mississippi, Virginia, and you know, we shared lots of fox hunting pictures with it back and forth.
Because we were talking earlier about a certain amount of similarity between a high, dry desert area of the Grand Canyon area and where you go to in Mongolia.
Arizona, particularly, you know, our hunting fixtures are very wide open with mountains to go up and down, but quite open and quite vast. So I was used to riding and hunting in that, you know, openness. And we always thought we had really huge terrain. Some of our fixtures were one pasture with 70,000 acres. So enormous. But you get to Mongolia and the scale is exponentially huge. I mean, it's hard to explain without seeing it, but it's mind-boggling how huge it is. And you just feel like there's only a scattering of people out there, and it just is amazing. It's such an amazing part of the world.
What's the most amazing food you've ever eaten there?
Well, you eat a lot of lamb. And I think actually when we're in Ulaanbaatar, there's fantastic restaurants.
Really?
So oh yeah. So we spend 2 days in Ulaanbaatar before we fly out to Olgii, and we eat at some great restaurants, excellent food. But out in Bayan-Olgii, when we're visiting with families, on the trip we have cooks that cook for us, and it's much more suited to our Western diet. But when we go visit families, you typically just show up at the ger, and then all this food just appears on the table, and it's, yogurt and dried cheeses and candy and cookies and butter, yogurt, irag. And then when we have an actual meal, which we did a few times, especially after Botay's eagle caught a wild eagle, it was such a celebration that night that Showman went and grabbed a young sheep, brought it into the ger. We all gave it the Muslim blessing, went out, processed the sheep, and then it got cooked all afternoon. And that evening, we all came back and had the most amazing meal, like the freshest lamb.
Mm.
The head is front and center on the platter. And, I guess the ears and the eyes are sort of delicacies. Some of the crew got those, but, you get the carve off the cheek meat first and pass it around. And then it also had this long sort of pastry thing. Really, it kind of looked like a giant intestine, but it was
I've seen
pastry
that on the pictures.
stuffed.
I was going to ask you what
Yes,
that was. It was a
it
pastry,
was.
stuffed
It
pastry.
was stuffed with carrots and some cooked vegetables and I don't know what spices, and it was so good. So that was, and then everybody shares in the big plate, so you just
Yeah.
grab what you want to eat it,
Mm.
and that's very
I
traditional.
mean, the ger to me looks like a big sort of glamping, fabulous with the hanging tapestries and things. Is that the sort of nomadic, traditional that they use up in the mountain, but not where they actually live, or do they actually live in them?
The herders live in those, typically 3 seasons of the year. So there's the Mongolian gers, which are more of a 4 season structure, and then there's the Kazakh gers, which are a little bit different, and they're really not made to withstand snow. So they typically will live in those spring, summer, fall, and then in the winter, their winter place will usually have, a house, or, some kind of structure, and the ger gets put away until springtime. But they can, we have our own permanent, ger camps set up that we hunt from and then ride from camp to camp, and they're about 25 kilometers apart. So this last trip, they had to move one of them from our first camp to the second camp, and the crew came in and in about a half hour had the whole thing dismantled, on the truck, drove it around. By the time we got there, we're finishing setting it up, and they can do them quite quickly because they know how to do it and they're used to doing it. But they're pretty amazing. And then they have wood stoves in them. So, the crew comes and starts the wood stove in the morning before we get out of bed. And they have beds in them, and
They're quite comfortable
starts the
and
stove.
warm, are they? They're quite
Yes,
comfortable.
they're very comfortable. They're warm. I mean, our accommodations are about as high end as you get out there. So the staying in the gers is really nice.
Yeah, wow. Well, you've been and seen things that people can only dream of, Mary, and it's just awesome just to look at the Instagram photos, which some of which you've kindly given me, and I will put a few up with this. Thank you ever so much. I've just also got a list here of the things that you do. You're a climbing guide, a Grand Canyon River guide, a snowboard ski patroller, communications director, graphic designer, Idaho River outfitter. I mean, these are an amazing list. Would you like to just pick out one of those?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I was
Exactly.
just thinking,
Even just
I
one.
haven't really had a real live year-round 8 to 5 job ever. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I've just always loved being in the outdoors and working in the outdoors. So I figured out a way to kind of make a living doing that. And so I've sort of been a guide most of my life. I mean, I'm a graphic designer as well, self-employed, so that allows me to have a little bit of freedom. And now I'm old enough where I'm kind of semi-retired from that. So got into skiing, and that was a passion, and then climbing. And so I worked as a mountaineering guide. I was a ski patroller in Utah at Snowbird.
Could you please tell us how you guide people through the Grand Canyon, Mary?
These are river trips, and they're generally 16 to 18 days long. And I row a boat, actually a wooden boat. There's rafts and wooden boats called dories, and that's what I predominantly row, and worked for a company for decades, taking groups of people through the Grand Canyon, which is amazing.
You're well used to leading the way, Mary. It's
yeah.
beautiful and so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Well, and I want to say you can come to Mongolia next September.
Yes.
That's the next trip.
You're making me think very hard there, Mary.
Oh, oh yeah, it's an experience.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure
worth
there'll be interested people listening to this when we publish this, and we're going to get cut off now, Mary. But so I'll say goodbye to you in Arizona, and thank you ever so much. It's absolutely inspirational talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
Very much. I appreciate it.
I'm going to press N now, Mary.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening, and please share with your friends, which helps a lot. And I look forward to next month when it could be you in the driving seat.